Hi guys, just FPL here. Welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'll be talking you guys through the best mid-price midfielder. So from the price range of 5 mil and 6 mil, I've picked arguably the best mid-price midfielders. I'm going to talk you guys through, and there is a lot of teams right now whose the template is big at the back. They want Gabriel Jesus up front. They want an 8 mil mid and 2 premiums. So we will at least must have one mid-price midfielder, if not two, to get that team, the template team. And I think there is some fairly obvious mid-price midfielders, which I'm not going to talk about, but I'm just going to talk you guys through some fairly different mid-price midfielders and who might, break the template, trying to break the template, who's looked quite decent during the preseason. So let's jump into the video. So the first two players is our Newcastle players, Bruno Guimaraes and Miguel Almiron. Now, they've both looked good at some point last season. Bruno has looked really well last season, and Almiron has just come up this preseason. And I think Almiron has looked really well in the preseason. He's got 4 goals in preseason, and he's playing the right wing position currently. And I think the right wing position, Newcastle want to sign someone to play that position, and currently they haven't got anyone to play there. Ryan Fraser has not had much minutes during this preseason, so I think Almiron will start the season there, and at 5 mil he could be a really good option. And last season he only got 1 goal and 0 assists, but again, his data doesn't look that great like Bruno's one. His expected goals isn't that greatest. He's not the best, and I think Almiron, those data was from a season where he didn't get much minutes. Now during the preseason, he's looked really sharp, and I think Eddie Howe did come out and say some things about him. So I think he could be a really good differential. And at 5 mil, if you look at those fixtures, they do have some really good fixtures to target. Nottingham Forest at home, a newly promoted side. We don't know what to expect from them. And let's talk about Bruno Guimaraes. I think Bruno, he's had 5 goals and 1 assist, but he's overperformed his data last season. And I think, at his time at Lyon, he did only get very little goals his entire time at Lyon. So he doesn't score much. And I think I've heard a lot of people, Newcastle fans, say that with a full strength team and new signings, I think we could see Bruno Guimaraes playing a deeper role, even the number 6 role. I think Shelby's out, so he could play the number 6 role, and it's fairly very deep, a defensive midfield position. So at 6 mil, I don't think he's the best. And the ownership, 14.4% ownership, I don't understand why people go for him. You have Martinelli at that price range. For 0.5 more you could get Rashford. For 0.5 cheaper you could get Neto, who's playing as a winger. So I think Bruno Guimaraes could play as maybe as a number 8, but most of the times I think we will see Newcastle play him as that defensive midfielder. So I think I don't like Guimaraes. I think Martinelli has the better stats. I think far better option. I think Almiron is one we could consider. So I'm not fairly convinced by both, but Almiron could be a really good differential to go for. Next we have Jesse Lingard. Now Lingard, I've not really looked at him since his move to Forest, and haven't looked at him much last season as well, because at United he was just that second choice cam and he didn't get much minutes. So moving to Forest, he could be the main man for Forest. He could be the talisman for Forest, and that could be a really good thing, because Lingard, we remember his loan spell at West Ham, and he was really, really good, and he did get a lot of points at that period. So we know what he's capable of, and we've seen it before. And can we see the same thing from him at Forest? Now, it's a newly promoted side where we haven't seen much of, and I think I just don't see me paying 6 mil for Jesse Lingard. Maybe at some point of the season where he's looking good, or maybe Forest has a double game week, but currently I just don't see myself personally going for Lingard. I think he's a good player, and he's have a very high ceiling. We know what he's capable of, but we just don't know what to expect from him. It's been a very rough last year for him, social media and all that. So I think we don't know what to expect from him, and I think we could see. I think it's just a wait and see for me. I think I don't see myself going for just Lingard at 6 mil again. There is a lot of options there, and his stats look great, not the greatest. And I think for Forest, we could see a team who surprised all of us, or a team who could be just really, really poor and lose 3-0 to Newcastle. So we don't know what to expect from them, and I think it's just a wait and see for Jesse Lingard. Next, we have our Crystal Palace players. We have Eze and Olise. Now, I think if Palace had the better fixtures at 5.5, fairly cheap. They are coming at a fairly cheap price. And Eze, I just don't really. If you're looking at those stats, we have an obvious winner here, which is Olise. Looking at those stats, his stats are way better, and I think those fixtures, I just personally won't go for them, and I think a lot of managers won't go for a Crystal Palace option unless you're planning to rotate them with a different player. But I just don't think you'll spend 1 mil more for like a Andreas Pereira just to rotate these Palace players. And if you're looking at their first 4 fixtures, you would just want to play them against Aston Villa. And I think Arsenal at home, Liverpool away, and Man City away aren't the greatest fixtures and look very tough fixtures. So I don't see us going for a Crystal Palace player, and maybe when their fixtures get better, we would go and look into these players, and I think their prices will drop. I think maybe at 5.4, 5.3, and then when we pick them up, they will be cheaper than 5.5. But for now, I just don't see us going for these two just because of the fixtures. But when their fixtures get better, I think Olise will be the clear option, and at 5.5, he could be a really good option once the fixtures get better. Next, we have Pablo Fornals. Now, Pablo Fornals, he's priced at 5.5, and West Ham bring in a player like Scamacca, we could see them shift in formation. Maybe a 3 at the back, a 3-4-3, but I just don't see. Before Scamacca came in, he would be a starter, but once Scamacca comes in, we could see a shift in formation. If they've played their 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, I see for now starting maybe Bowen on the right, maybe like a Benrahma on the left, or and then Miguel Antonio up front, and Fornals at the cam position. But I think they will change formations throughout the season, and I think Fornals, he's been really good last season, and coming into this price, I think West Ham, the FPL priced him this way, was expecting West Ham to sign a striker, and I think they have gone on and signed a striker, a top tier striker. So I think they will want to use him, and with Miguel Antonio looked really well last season as well. He could shift to the left, and Benrahma could play through the middle, but they also could play a 3 up front and a change in formation. So I think for now is a avoid for me, but it could be a really good option. Maybe when we see Miguel Antonio get injured and then they play a 4-2-3-1 as how they used to play. But for now, I just see Fornals as an avoid. 6 goals and 4 assists last season, quite decent for a 5.5 mil midfielder, and I just don't see anyone going for him. So 5.5 for me, he's an avoid. But maybe throughout the season, when West Ham player gets injured, we could see Fornals as a real option. Next, we do have our Wolves player Pedro Neto and Daniel Podence. Now, I wouldn't consider Podence before the Jimenez injury, but Jimenez did get injured, and now it just opens a lot of options. Fabio Silva did go out on loan, so they have no backup striker unless they use a youth academy player, and I don't see them using that. I think when we see Wolves fan saying that Huang can play up there or Podence, and I think Podence is the most likely to play up there. Now, their fixtures look great again for the first 5 to 6 fixtures, and Podence did get more goals and assists, but you have to remember Pedro Neto was injured throughout last season. So he was injured last season, and his stats just look way better than Podence. Not way better, but his expected goals and non-penalty expected goals look really good. And I think his stats was from a really small sample size. He came back, play a few, season ended. So Podence, to be fair, I'm quite impressed with his stats. 0.12 expected goals, 0.23 expected assists per 90, and 0.12 non-penalty expected goals. Now, Podence, he could be a great option if he plays as a striker, but we just don't know what to expect from Wolves. Now, they have shift information playing 4 at the back. They could go back to a 5 at the back. We don't know, but if they go for 4 at the back, we could see Wolves playing more attackingly, and they will focus to try to score more goals, as they scored really less goals last season. So I think Podence could be a great punt for the start of the season, but when Jimenez comes back, I think we won't just look at Podence. I think Pedro Neto, way better option. He's the template pick, 19.3%, and I hate to say it, Neto is just, I think, way better. If you want to go for a differential pick, Morgan Gibbs White could be a good shout, but I just don't see us going for Podence over Neto. I think Neto is the clear winner. But if you want to go for a slight, differential pick, Podence could be a really great one as well. And lastly, we do have our Aston Villa players, Leon Bailey and Jacob Ramsey. Now, Aston Villa have made a lot of improvements in the side. Diego Carlos, Kamara coming in, and they have made a lot of improvements. So I see what Aston Villa, if they have that consistent run and their players don't get injured, I see them as a top 10 side. And I think on paper their sides look really good. Their squad depth looks really well as well. So I think they could be a top 10 side. And looking at the stats, let's talk about Liam Bailey first. His stats are fairly similar to Jacob Ramsey. And Liam Bailey, he didn't get much minutes last year. 1 goal and 3 assists. I think he did get more minutes throughout the end of the season, where Steven Gerrard came in. He wanted to try every player and see, because Aston Villa couldn't advance up and go down from their spot position. So I think it was Steven Gerrard, they experiment them. And Liam Bailey, I think he will be a great option. During the preseason, he's looked really impressive, and I think he could be a really good shout. 3 goals and 2 assists in the preseason games. And Steven Gerrard did come out and say that he's shown that he wanted to be in the first 11. And if Danny Ings, I think, is the one to drop, and I think Liam Bailey could start game week 1, but at 5 mil, remember, he's still a very cheap option. At 5 mil, you won't expect him to start every week, and if he does start every week, you don't expect him to get 90 minutes every week. So Liam Bailey could be a good shout. 5 mil, I really like the looks of him, and I think if you're looking at players around him, you have 5.5 players again. Pedro Neto, I just don't see us pick. I just see, why not just pay that 0.5 more for Pedro Neto? He's gonna start, he's gonna get 90 minutes. His stats just look way better, and I just think that 0.5 more, you could get a really good player. And for 0.5 less, you could get Andres Pereira, who's also looked quite good. So Liam Bailey could be a good differential, if you call him a differential. And I think it's just, I don't see me paying 0.5. Personally, I would pay 0.5 more for Neto. But if you're Aston Villa supporter, Liam Bailey looks great, and I think he could be a differential as well. So Jacob Ramsey, now Aston Villa play a 4-3-1-2, and Jacob Ramsey has played quite deep throughout the end of last season. He hasn't played the attacking midfield role that he used to play. So he's played quite deep last season, and I think with the players like Kamara coming in, you have Douglas Luiz who could play in the midfield. You have a lot of great options who could play in the midfield. And Jacob Ramsey, I think he will have a lot of competition for his spot. And during the preseason game, their latest preseason game against Rennes, which they won and Bailey scored, they started with Kamara, Luiz and McGinn in the midfield, and Ramsey came on in the 71st minute. So I think we could see a fairly similar side starting. So they started with Martinez, Cash, Konza, Carlos, Dean, Kamara, Luiz, McGinn, Bailey, Watkins, Coutinho. I think Bailey, he's locked in. I think he will start game week 1, but throughout game week 2 and 3, if he has a poor performance, I think we would see him drop to the bench. And I think Jacob Ramsey, again, I just don't see us paying 5.5 for a player who's not going to even guarantee himself in the first team. And you could get Pedro Neto, players like him, Podence, Olise at the same price and who's going to start. So I don't see us going for these Aston Villa players. For me, I just don't see me having them in unless I'm really tight of budget, but I just don't see us going for them. So guys, that's all for this video. Please like and subscribe and tell me if you which mid-price player you're gonna go for. And I didn't include a player like Martinelli and the 6.5 mil players because I just looked at the fairly cheaper side of things, and I think Martinelli is a no-brainer. I just don't see me, for against these players his stats look better. So I just don't see you guys why not paying that 1 mil more for Martinelli. But of course, if you are planning to go for like a 3 mil draft, you could use two of these budget midfielders. So let me know which one you're going for, and it's been me, Jess FPL. I'll see you guys in the next one.